I want to believe that everyone is seeing my screen. So what I'm here for today is something called the normal SQL, which we have. But then my talk is titled specifically Sqlraw, Migrating Databases in Raw SQL. Why did I decide to do this? Okay, so before I move further, believing you're seeing my screen, I want to show you some links, and the links are here on the screen. Most importantly, you can see this GitHub link here. If you can visit it, you would have access to the files that I will be using, down to the Docker files too. And I've made sure that everything works well before I pushed it. So you could clone it, and then you would have access to all I have access to. I'm using Makefile a lot to make things easy for myself, because most of those things I've tried to automate them. So within the Makefile, if you type just make, you will see some instructions. And these are the instructions as it goes, with the things that they stand for. If you feel you don't understand what is in it, you can as well do a cat to the Makefile. That's after you've cloned the repository, and then you will be able to see them. So I tried to add a Docker for PostgreSQL, and then Docker for pgadmin, Docker for phpMyAdmin, for anyone that will be interested in making use of those. Okay, so part of the links that I added is a link to the survey that was done by Stack Overflow in 2020. And these two links here speaks about the rise of SQL in technology. So since they are links, and since you have access to them, I would want you to visit them by yourself. But importantly is the fact that SQL came third by the classification under technology programming, scripting, and markup languages. It came third. And then in this place too, it even came third here before Python itself. So over so many years, the use of SQL has been rising and rising in popularity. And then because of that, there is a need for us to write applications that you are easily able to deploy across several programming languages. And this becomes very useful when you're writing things around microservices here and there. So over time, I noticed that because I can code in different frameworks. So if I code in framework A, I'll try as much as I can not to mention names here. If I code in framework A, and then I need to do a microservice in framework B, and probably need to use another framework in language C. I have used all they have provided to be able to manage databases across them. I noticed that I'm somehow locked in if I want to do anything above board. For instance, this time around, I'll mention projects. Let's assume I have a project in Elixir. And then for Elixir, I'm using Ecto, I'm sure that's how it's pronounced, for my databases and everything. And then I have everything locked down to Ecto. And then somehow along the line, I decided to create a part of the project. And it's making use of the same database. But this time around, I decided to write a microservice part in maybe Django. Okay, so I come to Django, I begin to write all the models again, and maybe I need to do a microservice in Flask. All these issues begin to crop up. So I had a lot of issues, and then there was a day too I was trying to do something around using raw query for a little project I was working on. So I noticed that it looks as if I was rusty already in SQL. And funny enough, I started my life as a database administrator before I even started coding full time. So I've always known a lot about databases. Then I decided that the most important thing that was holding me across boards is the fact that there is huge migration tool in most of these ORMs, as you would like to call them, or any other name that is fancy for them. And that sort of endear us to them and keep us locked in. Then I decided to go and grab the bull by the horn. So if you clone the repository and then you type make GC will be able to help you to pull down this, do a clone of the project named Sqlraw. And I have done all those. I've activated my virtual environment, and then I would be able to do the demo for you. Please, if you have questions, you can go ahead and post them. I'll respond once I'm done. So now to the project itself properly. So when you type Python manage.py, assuming you have cloned the repository, and then you give it a -h, it will show you the help files that would help you with this. So I was working with PostgreSQL, but whatever I do applies across board. It can migrate for PostgreSQL, it can do MySQL, MariaDB SQLite for now. Maybe over time, with the help of people joining in, then I should be able to add more and more databases to it. But for now, it will show all the concepts that we need. So I'll be using this makefile a lot, and I can tell you that the GitHub page for it too has a lot in the documentation. Then if you want to use Docker too, you will be able to find all those things in the link. So I have done the help. Then the next thing is you could also check for the version that you're running. Nothing huge about this. And most importantly, before you could start working, you have to have your virtual environment activated. And then there are these files that end in .sh. These files, I added 3. There is one for MySQL, there is one for PostgreSQL, and then there's one for SQLite. You can alter it to test. So the one that I'm using today is the one for the PostgreSQL. And then when I say alter to test, I mean you can give it the path that you need here. So please pay attention. The path I give to it is by $home/PostgreSQL, and then the same thing applies across board. So what I'm telling basically is in my home directory, create a directory named PSQL and dump all these files in it. So after doing that, the next thing I did was just basically to open it inside my Atom, and that's what you'll be seeing at the other side of the screen. Please, can you see my Atom? I don't think you can see my Atom. Okay, so in the absence of that, what I was trying to say is if I do lsll and do ~PSQL, it will list some things in it, and some of those things listed is this. You will see that this folder queries is inside it. So everything I'll be doing will be domiciled inside this place. Then there is a log file in case you need to check out things that have happened. The log file contains some things that might be necessary or useful for you to be able to track how things worked over time. Now, you need to activate your shell script. In this instance, I was using PSQL, and immediately I run this, it will, of course, show the full path to everything, and then the file can now read it, because anytime you type Python manager.py-anything, it reads the variable from the environment. I did it this way so that it will be easily usable from any language without being locked into any specific language or framework. So for you to start your migration, we usually initialize our database, and you can do that with this. But meanwhile, I had done something already, and the thing I did includes the username and the password for the database named evolves, and then the location at which it exists and the port. Everything is already added here. So it is with this that it will work. So I already ran some migrations, but then I want to downgrade those migrations, hoping everything is fine. If we fail at this, we would solve it together. I'm not aiming for perfection. What I'm aiming in this instance is for us to see all the things that it's capable of doing. So I type Python manage.py, then I need to downgrade. I'll just give it a -d. If everything works fine, then it will be able to do the downgrade. So in this instance, it's telling me something. It's telling me that it's expected one argument. Okay, so we would solve that as time goes on. Like I said, some errors are done on purpose by me so that we can learn and be able to know how to use the script. Already, I did a Python manage py, Python manage.py-i, and it initiated the database. So I want to check for some other things. First of all, I could type Python manage.py-s. If I do that, it will tell me that I already had 2 migrations done. Yes, and those migrations are some files that are domiciled on the system. And I'll find those files at this location. And if I do ls here, those files are named exactly the number for the migrations done, so that it will be easily traceable. And those files are epoch time. So you can actually convert this to know date and time by which that was done. That's what the -s, it lists all migrations registered on the database. Okay, so I could also do a -f. And when I do an F, it lists all the migration files. In this instance, these files, it gives you these files, and you would see where you actually could use them. Okay, so since I already have some migrations done, around the way, I could want to check out something, maybe a regular expression for, who knows, let me say, create. So I wanted to check where create appeared in any of these things, and it tells me I can find create in these files. So doing a cat, you could see create in all these places, and that's why it popped up. Okay, so we'll still get to this place. This was the initial migration that was done on the table. So I'll just clear my screen right now, and then I'll type Python manage.py-h once more to be able to move ahead with what I'm doing. So we've seen those files. We've seen how we could search with a regular expression. What I haven't shown you is how to initialize, migrate, downgrade, and then upgrade to. So I'll do something. I'll do Python manage.py-s first to check the status of what we have. Having seen that, I'll do Python manage.py-migrate. Since I already have, and I've already done two migrations already. So when I give it a migrate, it will create an SQL file for me that I could alter to test. So hoping everything goes on fine. If I ask it for the status now, it still tells me that I have these, but I had done migrations for 2 files. I've yet to do for this. I'd like to repeat this several times so that we could have a lot of them. And then I'll also go back and check out this. So we have 4 undone migrations. And when we check out those files, you could see that let's just try and see what is contained inside this place. So Python manage.py-h. Okay, so first of all, you could check if certain word you want to use is present in the SQL definitions, like if it's a keyword or not, and that's what that K stands for. I want to check since I'm using PostgreSQL, I want to check the word user. And it came back with an error. It tells me that the variable user is a PostgreSQL reserved word. There was a day I was trying to write something, so everything kept failing. I did create table user, not knowing that PostgreSQL or had it as a reserved keyword, or better yet, I had forgotten. So I decided to add this instance for you to check something by keyword. And then you could have a need to print SQL and see what you have there. Okay, so I want to print the SQL to terminal. I try to print what this file contains, this file, without doing a cut on it. I think the screen is dirty. So if you do Python -py-s, you can actually print what is contained in it. Even if you do it by the -f, you can also use that to check what is contained in it. So in this place, this is what is contained in it. So when it creates files, for instance, I'll go with this now since it's the last one I did and we have not done the migration. Assuming I have this, this is when I did Python manage.py-m for migrate. I was just clicking the migrate. This was what happened. Now it is left for me to alter this. In this instance is where the whole thing gets inserted. In this instance is where the whole thing gets deleted. An example of one I did was this second one. I'll show you what happened there. Sorry about that. Okay, so I do not want to clear the screen so that we could compare and contrast. In this place, if you noticed, I added my create table before the migration. And of course, after I had created the table, so this by default will always be present there, including that time and everything. You're not expected to alter it. Then when it comes to the downgrade, you have to indicate if you want downgrade or not. If it's useful for you, you can leave it and do it to test. Otherwise, you are allowed to leave it. So I would like to leave this place for now and then try and run my migrations. So Python -py-h gives me all the list I have. I did some migrations then. So if I do Python manage.py, I have this amount of undone migrations, hoping everything goes fine. For me to make sure it's in the database is a -u, and if everything goes on fine, you do not see an error. And when I repeat -s again, everything says migration is done. And like I said, those migrations are files that are resident on your PC that you can actually alter to test and see how things are working. Then the next thing I'd like to do now is it's time for me to downgrade. I actually want to downgrade right now and probably go to the beginning of the whole thing. So meanwhile, we did keyword, we did collection, okay? So assuming you want to do Python -py-p, assuming you want to do more than one paste, you want to show more than one thing, what they contain. For instance, you're allowed to do something like this. Okay, so when you give it this command with that many -p, it will do everything for you. So this starts from here to here, okay, and then the other one too. Okay, so this is 657. This is 657, and this is 9223. This is where 9223 stopped. That's the meaning of when you see something like collection. That's what this guy means here. Okay, so you know I've been copying numbers. It might not be interesting. If I do if I do my S like this, or better yet, I could list all the migration files by number. I just give it by N. So it tells me that this is the first one, and this is the last migration I did. Okay, so going back to my H and doing this by number, I'd like to stop clearing the screen. If I need to print it, I can do Python MariaDB and tell it to print the sixth one without giving it the number, or tell it to print the first one without giving it the number. You know, all this may come in very handy and useful. That's what the by index means. And then again, you could format a specific file by index. I'd like to format this file, but before I format it, let's see how it looks like. So I'd like to do the B2 . What do I want to do? I want to format the second file, but meanwhile, I want to show it so that people would see what's happening there. And then when I do that, I also want to run the help file. Okay, so this is it as it is presently. Okay, so I could format by index. I could just change this to y minus y2. And if you check, I'm sorry, the whole thing is modeled up right now, but maybe we would remember that this is the beginning from this point. The help file started from here. But before then, if you see create table weather, you would see how it's displayed. And when you run your format on it, you would see how it's displayed now. And this is the formatted under the section new query is now what we have. The whole thing is sort of modeled up by specification. It's something I also alter to taste. For whatever reason, you might want to format your SQL query, so that's also there. By this time, I have done collection P. I've done keyword. We could search by keyword, printing by index, by number, listing files by number, the status, listing just the files by the name, searching regular expression. I have done migration. I've done upgrading. Now I will downgrade, and then we hopefully would initialize. Okay, so Python manager QI D1. So for you to know what has happened, you can run your Python manager QI -s to see that this one says migration undone, so this no longer works. But meanwhile, if you do this by number, you know you have 6 migrations done. If you are doing a downgrade comes from the back. That's why this number is one that is undone. So if you do the downgrade again and tell it to downgrade by 1, and you check the status, it still does this one. So if you need to downgrade down to this point, you will be giving it the number of downgrades you should do. At this point, we would get an error because it has downgraded to the point that if we check out this file, okay, so that would just be Python manager PY. This is the first Python manager PY-B, the first file. If you check the first file, this is the first when initialization was done. It actually created a table, inserted into table, and when the downgrading came, it dropped the table. So by the time I went back for an S, asking it for how many migrations, it couldn't even find the table. So this is left on purpose, no existing migrations done. And then we cannot actually see what has happened here. We can see all the things that would have happened. If we check the log file, which is there for us, a lot of things happened. So most of those critical errors are also found in your log file, and here and there, many things are logged. So if you have any doubts about anything, you can always go back to your log file and check out. And what's the beautiful thing about this? The beautiful thing is, if I need to work on SQLite right now, as I speak with you, it's very simple. So I'll just do the nano and do the SQLite file, which is an example I gave there. And maybe I'll just change all this. I'll just change all this to directory. PWD. I'll change PWD to home. Anywhere I find PWD. Okay, so I'll basically do this. Hoping everything goes on fine, then I shouldn't face any problem. And that is it. So once I do this and I do PS, I activate that shell script basically. Once I do this, if I do Python manage.py and do -h, if everything is fine, it should give me the same thing. And you would realize, hopefully, that there should be something in this location. Hopefully, I said, there is nothing there, unfortunately. There is nothing hopeful about it. Okay, so I'll do Python manage.py initialize -i. And if I go back and check now, the file now exists. It has been initialized. So I could do my migration, as many as I can, without issues, and ask for the status. It's just one migration that has been done. I'm having migrated, so I can upgrade, ask for the status again. Everything has been done. And how many are they? There are 4. So I want to downgrade the first 3 and ask for the status. It downgrades the first 3, even without checking out anything. So what I can do in this instance is to go to this location and check out these files. These files are resident on the system. And if you do a cat on them, or you use the means by which we have embedded, maybe Python manage.py -b1, the first one, b2. So what was happening when I was doing migration? Migrate, upgrade, migrate, upgrade. So what it does in that instance is very simple. It will just create an insert based on the time into the table and keep it like that, expecting you to add your own code to this part or your comments, and expecting you, but a situation whereby you didn't add those and then you came back and then you do an upgrade. So it will just add these places here. That's why nothing was failing, basically. So having done that, I switched from doing PostgreSQL to MySQL to SQLite. So I want to switch back to my PostgreSQL. And right now, Python, so I want to do something. I want to okay, let's see. So the directory, this still exists. So what happened is, if I do I'd like to activate those command variables once more. So if I do Python manage.py-s now, everything is as it is. So -h, and I do an I go back to that directory. All these guys are back up. They weren't here before. Then we'll now have a file. I do -s. It shows me that migration is done, the first one. So what I did basically that time was to clear up all the things I had since I had done a downgrade and moved everything and started afresh. So at this point, I would confidently say that I've done the I, M, U, D, R, F, S, N, Y, B, K, P, V, and H. Those are the options that we have. So I'm done with my demo, and